Hey. That's going to kill me, those lights. So welcome to Wealth Inequality Day, the same as every other day. And speaking of that, I'd like to thank our plutocrat mayor for helping pay my salary today, as you heard in the list of funders. And rather than a pep talk or an analysis of the situation, that is rather than a keynote, I'll leave that to Slavoj Žižek. And in a way, you can say I'm in terms of presentation, the Obama to his Romney. I hope he's here. Anyway, so I'm not going to speak about the subject at hand, as I said, which is, to say plainly, capitalism and neoliberal devastation. I'm going to leave that to you and all the rest of us and other speakers, and I'm just going to present a project of mine which has already popped up on the screen, whose central issue, of course, is the issue, to speak plainly, of class. So, with the countdown running. I think of this work as my first really American work. It's a representation or enactment of what can fairly be described as an American ritual, a small town or suburban one of post-war vintage that has immigrated along with the myriad of mostly young suburbanites and small towners back into the urban core. Therefore, we know what a garage sale is. Can we lower the key lights because I'm blind? The project has, okay, thanks, but thanks for the slide. The project has always been situated in and around the art world, and now it's slated to be at the heart of the art world and the atrium of New York's Museum of Modern Art. I'm from Brooklyn, and in my 20s, I moved to what was then a struggling backwater military city of San Diego, California, a congeries of suburbs and surrounding small towns in a brilliantly beautiful Pacific setting, which divided its economic base between its military industries, the military itself, and agriculture, with the attending strange overlaps of class and race. Many of the customs and attitudes about this real America struck me as strange or even peculiar, but the relevant one is the ritual called the garage sale. And there were so many of them. This is my garage sale, using my track. I was taken aback by this peculiar custom in which people put out their goods on card tables and the like, on the driveways, in their front yards, in their backyards, on the lawn, priced them, sat with them, and greeting those who stopped to browse and engaging in transactions, pitching the items. New Yorkers, in contrast, believe in largesse. You put the stuff you don't want out on the street, on the fence of... Hey, do you see trash? Marcy? The whole apartment is furnished by the trash from the street. You hang things over the fence of the front of your apartment building or your private house, or you pass things along to those in need and you just give it away. I couldn't get the mindset that wouldn't be ashamed to sell things to your neighbors, as if I was trying to put something over on them, that I wouldn't be ashamed of admitting I needed to make some quick bucks. And then there was the question of the undesired tear in the veil of privacy, the curtain behind which we hide our imperfections. And just last week, a German interviewer called me up and asked just this question: why aren't people ashamed to put out the stuff they don't want? So this just means that the notion of the private lives in Germany and the rest of Europe, perhaps, but not here. Turns out that none of this was operative, and the garage sale, in fact, is a sort of community ritual in some areas. And I realized quickly that garage sales were largely run and frequented by women, which gave it a special interest to me because this was that liminal space where the domestic enters into the commerce of the rest of the public. 1973 was the year of the great oil shock, which seriously damaged the economy, especially for poor people and those struggling on the margins, and which my friends and I saw as a plot to impose economic discipline on what was considered by elites to be the ungovernability of the democracies. And I understood that the garage sale was an aid to survival for cash-strapped families who wanted to be able to buy more things, from necessities to luxuries. Once again, we are in a crisis in which the garage sales are burgeoning to the point that many towns and localities have to limit the number that each household can have. But this certainly doesn't apply to the upper reaches of the art crowd. Keep that thought in mind, as though you didn't know it. So I got to wondering about questions of value, women, work, and community. And as an artist, I also thought about the value system of works in the art world, because at the time we were beginning to think of the art system as a system among systems. So I decided to hold the first one in the Art Gallery of the University of California, San Diego, where I was a grad student. I advertised it like any other garage sale in the Penny Saver, and I also advertised it with flyers to the art crowd. Therefore, I was kind of constructing a dual audience. I was interested in bringing together people okay, I'm not looking for people, I'm looking for my water bottle. I was interested in bringing together people from the general stream of individuals in the world, people who might go to garage sales, and of course, the art crowd. And in it, I adopted the persona of a single mother, kind of a hippie, and engaged in negotiation with anyone who cared to haggle with me. I would characterize my pricing as capricious, activating the question of systems of value. Subsequently, you can see this has been in a number of places, and that's part of my narrative. Hey, great, thanks. There was a chalkboard that said maybe the garage sale is a metaphor for the mind, and that was to provide, did I go backwards? Eek. I'm always terrible at these things. To provide a different structural action. I'm hopeless. Technology and I hate each other. It's okay. I don't usually win. So this is to provide a different axis for thinking about the work. People were interested in whether the stuff was really mine, even though I took pains to assemble items from friends and coworkers and to have clothes and shoes of different sizes right next to each other. And that's because the sale has a narrative of its own. There were letters and baby clothes that were mine, which shocked people whom I knew. But there was also, oh, how do I get to the video? I'm running ahead of myself. There was also a slideshow made of images I bought at a garage sale held by the kids of a man who died. I was immediately attacked in print by Herbert Marcuse and one of his graduate students for desecrating the space of art. How could I sell junk in the space of art? Okay. What would you like me to sell in the space of art? And of course, this was precisely the question. Marcuse and his graduate student, both of whom, by the way, were friends of mine, were for Hegelian negation, and I was for critique, but critique that was contiguous with the rest of life. Utopia is fine, but not always operative. I wanted to focus on the centrality of the commodity in everyday life and the different ways that sedimented labor underlying it can or cannot be alluded to, demystifying or exposing the commodity fetish. In '77, I moved the garage sale to an alternative space, La Mamela in San Francisco, but not to the gallery, but rather to its garage, because it's always kind of standing next to. From this event, a video to go with the audio was made, and this too goes along with everything at each subsequent sale. In the act of pricing a painting. The audio track, as I've mentioned, was a meditation on value and community and friendship as it appeared to me in my persona. That is, it was spoken with certain sentiments that were fictive. The image projected is from my notes from the time writing the thing. This part stems directly from Marx, The Fetishism of Commodities and the Secret Thereof, Capital Volume 1, Section 4. A commodity is therefore a mysterious thing simply because in it the social character of people's labor appeared to them as an objective character stamped upon the product of that labor. Because the relation of the producers to the sum total of their labor is presented to them as a social relation existing not between themselves but between the products of their labor. This is the reason why products of labor become commodities, social things whose qualities are at the same time perceptible and imperceptible by the senses. And I apologize to those of you who know this by heart. When we bring the products of our labor into relation with each other as values, it's not because we see in these articles the material receptacles of homogeneous human labor. Quite the contrary. I'm continuing with Marx. Whenever, by an exchange, we equate as values our different products, by that very act we also equate as human labor the different kinds of labor expended upon them. Value, therefore, does not stalk about with a label describing what it is value, rather, that converts every product into a social hieroglyphic. The characters that stamp products as commodities have already acquired the stability of natural, self-understood forms of social life before man seeks to decipher not their historical character, for in his eyes they are immutable. She wonders if it's sacrilege to sell the shoes her baby wore. I can't see you, Suzanne, but I assume you see you. She wonders if her friends will come and buy things. She wonders if she should give them things for free. Will you judge me by the things I'm selling? And then I thought no more about garage sales until I had a traveling retrospective in 1999, and to my surprise, many of the curators wanted to have a garage sale too as part of the event. Each time the sale got bigger and gathered items from the previous sales, I was surprised because I'd failed to notice how the idea of shopping had seized the imagination of the art world and indeed moved directly to its center. At the new museum, although the show was in the basement, it was also in the front window on Broadway, occupying two symbolic positions, out of sight in the basement and on display, just like me right now. This was the only time that I suggested holding a garage sale myself at the Moderna. The show was a collaboration with the museum at its temporary home near the Central Terminal, along with Racetown, Europe's largest indoor go-kart facility, and Convictus, which helps homeless people with AIDS gain community and social services. Each contributed to the show with services conversation and objects. The bulk of the items for sale were donated by the museum staff, their friends and relatives. There was conversation between convictus and visitors to the museum, and there was, at the end, a conference with the Stockholm social ministers, the Swedish social ministers, in the museum on questions of homelessness, housing, and AIDS. And there was a live feed from each of the facilities during the show. These are the guards with their purchases. Then there were a few more. This is Dublin. I'm skipping some, but that's fine. This is London. I single this one out because it was in Berlin at the United Nations Plaza School, and there it basically took place among a community of typically impoverished artists who had been attending the program of the United Nations Plaza School. And then the last one till now was in Art Basel as part of the legitimizing program associated with the fair. Mine was at the museum. Mine was at the Museum of Cultural History, and this group of gallery goers were totally friendly, almost uniformly high art literate professionals, artists, and friends, and of course, that didn't stop them from haggling like crazy, which is the operative principle of the garage sale. It seems to me that as the show moves into the heart of the Western art world, the patrons are far from affected by the debt crisis that has afflicted the rest of society. Shopping continues apace. Haggling over prices has different meaning for different groups. For one, it is sport. For the other, it's serious business. Hey, I know you guys are out there, but I don't see you. Okay. In the 1970s, in the first version of the sale, the audience was divided. Ordinary shoppers were intrigued at a real garage sale held in an art gallery, but they weren't driven to philosophizing, and the art shoppers felt they were engaging in a great conspiracy. Today, the art public is still jubilant about shopping because art is supposed to be fun. The only surprise is they don't even have to pay extra to share in the joke. The prospective garage sale, the Meta Monumental, as I'm calling it, has a huge number of items donated by me, but also by the museum staff and visitors to PS1, and informal circles of community in various upscale Manhattan and, more to the point, hipster artist Brooklyn neighborhoods. But now, unless the visitors come in during free hours, or they have various memberships or student passes, or take part in the education events, partly organized by Pablo, that focus precisely and directly on value, work, women, and labor, the entry fee alone is pegged at $25. That fundamentally changes the character of the work. The value of labor, class, women are still at issue, and the value of sedimented labor, the question of financialization accruing to art in the temple, where the walls themselves might be said to be made of money. I happen to believe that this work continues to ask, what is the social value of art, including its social relations of production, as opening these questions to participants and observers. Meanwhile, artists and students are increasingly afflicted by debt, and I support and urge you to join debt strike organizing and actions. You probably can't see this. I held this up in a photo with our dear mayor. This is Dead Strike Manual. I have 51 seconds in which I can just thank you so much for your patience and hope that we have a great day.